a metal rectangle, a camera on the back, a charger on the bottom, and a touchscreen on the front. This is what your phone looks like. I'm not even gonna say probably or most likely, because that's just not true. Your phone is some variation of these four things, and it has been for a long time, ever since a crisp Tuesday morning of 2007, when I was pouring a bowl of Cheerios and Steve Jobs was unveiling the very first of what would become the primary way in which the majority of the population interacts with the internet. And ever since then, some form of this has been in our pockets ever since. And it gets the job done. I can call people, I can text people, I can play video games about a duck crossing the road. I'm very good at crossing road. I can tap on anything I could ever want. So what's the problem? I don't know. What's the problem with some of those Cheerios that I poured in 2007, that spilled on the floor and that I kicked under the fridge that have been sitting there ever since? Those Cheerios underneath there actually share something in common with phones today. They're both stale. Don't get me wrong. Touchscreen phones are really, really good, all things considered. Just like I said, they do the things they're supposed to do really, really well. But before we decided that this is how a smartphone was going to be, there was an era of experiments. The 2000s were a time of technological blossom. Computers were going from looking like this to looking like this. People's hair was going from looking like this to looking like this. And phones were going from looking like gray business bricks to looking like... Well, how should phones look in this new millennium? Does anyone have any ideas? I do have an idea. It seems like every single phone manufacturer was trying to find an answer to that question. Experimenting and trialing with all kinds of different designs. Throwing all kinds of spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And they come in a lot of different forms. The first of which I want to talk about is slidey phones. This guy right here is the LG Breeze. This was my first cell phone I ever had. And he comes with a pretty special feature. He slides. Slidey outfits were the most popular phone thing of the 2000s. You may not be familiar with my friend the LG Breeze right here, but you've definitely seen a slidey phone of some kind. Sorry. It is an icon of the 2000s. Most worked not unlike my friend here, spitting a keyboard out the side or a numpad down the bottom. Those were the two most popular types of slides, but very, very far from the only. This is the Motorola V70. A pretty normal looking guy on the surface, but with a deep, flipping secret. That's right, around the side. It pivots around its weird circle screen to go around the side. That is so cool. It is pretty much just a normal flip phone, just with a different direction, but still, that's so cool to me. Another phone from Motorola, the Motorola Flip Out, is a phone named quite accurately, because that's just what you do when you see it. Watch this. What? That is so cool. I remember seeing this one back in the day and being in equal awe to as I am right now. How does it do that? How does it do that? Megan's? You know what? When I recorded this, I thought it flipped a lot differently than it actually does. It's actually probably just a single hinge right here. Anyways, this is the Siemens SK65. I know it's gonna be hard to beat that last one, but watch. What? Is it comfortable to hold when it flips out like that? That is crazy. I love that. They didn't stop at just keyboards or numpads. Popping out those is cool, but what if you popped out the screen? This is the LG VX9400, and instead of popping out an isolated keyboard or numpad, instead, the display pops up and rotates, turning into a horizontal display to play videos or watch the news. I found this picture of the news on it. That is so nifty and snazzy. I'm saying all these weird words because I looked through my script and I saw that I said cool like probably 30 times. So I went on a thesaurus and I swapped some of them out. This phone is so modest and in vogue. It really is though. Like, this is so creative and just cool. Shit. I love things like this. They actually tried to recreate this phone in 2020 with the LG Win, which sounds like it'd be really cool in concept, but in practice, it doesn't really have the same charm. That's a hammer. Another poppy screen you might be familiar with is the Danger Hip Top, which went by many different names, most popularly known as the T-Mobile Sidekick. Whoosh! Look at that spin. This is the phone that Zoe from Zoe 101 used. That's where I saw it. I watched Zoe 101. Her brother was named Dustin, and my real name is Justin, and it made me mad. Some phones didn't pop or slide at all. This is the famous Nokia E70, which on the surface looks like a regular Nokia type phone, but it unfolds like a book. What? Again, just such creative ways to do that. That is so cool. So far, I've mostly only talked about sliding and rotating, I guess, phones. But there was another type of motion, also very, very popular in the early 2000s. Flip phones. I don't have a flip phone, so pretend this is a phone. Wait, my duck can be my flip phone. Watch this. Wang wang, wang wang, wang wang. Hello? There were many flip phones too, that flipped in ways you could not imagine. The Samsung P100V was a phone that you could pivot the hinge around, so you could use it as a phone like this, or type a text message like this. This is the Moto A1200, another flip phone. But not really. It does flip, but the flippy part is actually just a translucent piece of plastic that does have a speaker, so it does still function as a proper flip phone, but there's not a screen up there. That is the most unique flip phone I've ever seen, except maybe the Lamborghini phone. I miss these types of phones so much. Any device that allows you to swap or change or move things like a Transformer toy is so fun. I wish we could implement this somehow into modern phones. There's folding phones now. They're starting to become a thing, but the streamlined phone design right now is still just this. But speaking of shapes and silhouettes, let's talk about those. These phones from this era can take about any shape you could imagine, and there are some very, very unique ones. This bad boy is the Nokia 7600, a Tamagotchi looking phone with buttons on the side and a screen in the middle, all in the form of this weird shape. What is that? What would you even call that? It's not a circle, it's not a square, it's lips! Lip phone! I actually really like the design of this one. It looks like it would feel so nice to hold in your hand. It looks so smooth. It looks like you could drop it like soap, like whoop. Whoops, I love it. On the other end of the shape spectrum, we have the Nokia 7280, a stick type phone that was inspired maybe by a coffee crisp. It's got a screen on the left and a little control pad on the right, which you rotate around like an iPod. It's also got a camera inside of it that you can access by going bop, and it pops on open. That's so much fun. Like, who comes up with this? Like, oh, we have our weird stick coffee crisp phone. What else should we add? Should we put a camera on it? Yeah, but should we just make it like kind of pop open like a Pez dispenser? Yes, that part was not inspired by the coffee crisp. The Toshiba G450 is another lawn one. It reminds me maybe of a car dashboard, or maybe peas. It's got these three circles. One is a display, the other one is a numpad, and the other is the rest of the numpad. It's split into two separate circles, which there's not anything necessarily wrong with, but it does go against almost anything or any kind of numpad anyone has ever seen. Usually all the numbers are in one place. Some companies just took existing things and just stuck a phone onto it. Look at the Nokia N95. That's just a camera with a phone stapled on. Look at this random unassuming makeup thing. Oh, that's nice. That's probably a mirror with some kind of makeup thin inside it, probably. Psych! That's a phone! That's the Siemens Zilibri 6. We've talked about flips and slides, and we've talked about shapes. But I want to talk about another trend that was present in the 2000s, and that is gimmicks. By gimmick, I don't mean that in a negative connotation. A gimmick isn't necessarily bad. In fact, most of these are good. By that, I just mean some kind of novelty or thing that you normally would not see on a phone. Like this. What is that? What is this? This is the Sony Xperia Pureness. Oh my god, I love this phone. The bottom half is a pretty normal Sony Ericsson phone, but the top half. The display is a piece of glass that makes it look like your icons and your stuff is floating in air, suspended by nothing. It feels like magic. And this isn't just on camera too. This is actually how the phone was. It's completely translucent on the back, so you can see through right to whatever the person using it is doing. It has zero privacy, but who needs privacy when your phone looks like this? Oh, you caught me reading Sonic the Hedgehog X Rainbow Dash fanfic. Might I ask how you found out? Oh, what's that? You read it off of the back of my floating glass future phone? Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh dear me. Oh, privacy was not the only deficit on this phone. It also doesn't have GPS, an SD card slot, no app store, no camera, and the screen is completely black and white. And not to mention completely useless on a sunny day. But fuck, man. I just can't help myself but look past all that because of how cool this is. This phone is actually a perfect demonstration of my point. I found this concept image by Tuajik of what an Xperia Pureness of today could look like with a more modern smartphone design. They could do this. It seems so out there, this crazy all-glass, fully translucent phone. But this is very, very far from impossible. But they don't, because it's not that period of experimentation of the 2000s anymore. Another perfect example of a gimmick phone is the Xperia Play. Its gimmick was it was for gaming. It was the gaming phone. Nowadays we are blessed with so many gaming phones that we all love so much. Right? What, you guys don't have an Asus ROG Phone 6 with a thermoelectric cooler add-on? Oh, we have many gaming phones these days, but back then, these didn't really exist. This was one of its kind. It's a pretty regular 2012 phone, but it has a slide-out keyboard that isn't actually a keyboard at all. Instead, it is a rough PlayStation gamepad, which is a neat concept. I remember really wanting one of these things back in the day, because it's so cool, and also because this phone, for a time, was the only way you could play Minecraft on mobile. For 22 days. It had all kinds of games and stuff. I think a few were exclusive to it. They weren't, like it had Battlefield Bad Company 2. That's pretty cool. And because of these games, I got the impression when I was little that it was a phone combined with a PSP Mini or something. Remember those? But that is not the case. It was a fairly regular Android phone. It was not a console combined with a phone. That would just be crazy. Right? This is the Nokia N-Gage, the true first gaming phone. Half phone, half game main. It really was. It was meant to be a phone, but also a full-on game console to compete with the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy did end up winning out though, due to having 1,474 more games. But that's not to say that it didn't have games. This didn't run just like Snake or some mobile game. This ran full-on game cartridges, and it had some good titles. There's Tony Hawk Pro Skater, The Sims, Rayman, Sonic N. That's not a joke. It was really called that. It wasn't anything like Sonic R though. It even had Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2004. What more could you really ever need? And the last gimmick I want to talk about is the Samsung Galaxy Beam. This is kind of breaking the theme of the video since it is a modern touchscreen smartphone like I ragged on in the beginning, but I wanted to mention it regardless because I really love it. It's just a normal Samsung Galaxy S3 but with a projector stuck in it. Okay, up to now, I've been excluding a certain type of phone, and that is internet phones. When you hear the term internet phone, you probably think of something like the BlackBerry. Before the iPhone, I feel like BlackBerry was largely considered one of the best ways to have the internet on your phone. It's what every businessman used to check emails and do internet businessy phone things. But there was a lot of experimentation and question on how to take the internet mobile long before the BlackBerry. In 1996, the Nokia Communicator was the first ever phone to load up a traditional HTML website on a phone, and exclusively in Finland. Between that and the BlackBerry, there were a lot of ideas for what a mobile internet could look like, some of which weren't even phones. This device is the Sony Vaio UX. I think that's how you pronounce Vaio. No one's ever told me otherwise. This is one of the most interesting devices I've ever seen. I love it. It looks a little bit like a debit machine, but I assure you it is not. This is from an era before internet on phones was a widespread thing, but for people who still wanted a portable computer experience. It's not very much a cell phone and it's not very much a laptop. It's somewhere in between. It has a full screen display that pops up to reveal a full QWERTY keyboard. It's got a little mouse nub and a bunch of different buttons for things. It runs full desktop Windows XP, which seems awkward to say the least to use on a device this small. You can either use the mouse nubs for control or it's also a stylus-based touchscreen. I love this thing. I was going to say that I would love to have a modern version of this, but I don't know if I would. It looks like it would be extremely awkward to do almost anything on here except maybe check the internet or draw a picture, which my current phone does just fine. It would be really nice to have this full Windows desktop experience on the go, but I really don't think I would use it for much more than I already use my phone right now for. That's talking about it as if it were a phone though. What's really interesting is this did actually come back today. The Steam Deck is pretty much the exact same thing as this, only with an emphasis on games, I guess. But it could play one game that the Steam Deck could never. It could play Inkball. Have you ever seen Microsoft Inkball? I bet not. I love Microsoft Inkball. My dad had a super early Windows XP laptop that had also a touchscreen with a stylus, and me and my brother went crazy on Inkball. Go play Inkball. Anyways, this definitely wasn't the best mobile means to the internet. This actually wasn't even the best way to experience Windows on mobile. What do you mean, you might ask? Let me show you something. Windows Mobile. When you hear that phrase, you most likely think of this, live tiles and the mess that was Windows 8. But a lot of people don't know that this was not the only version of Windows Mobile to ever exist. Far from it. Mobile versions of Windows date back as far as the year 2000. Back then, it was called Windows Pocket PC, and it ran on small phone-esque devices. Look at these things. It was later renamed to Windows Mobile and used all the way through XP, Vista, and even Windows 7, before obviously being discontinued in favor of the new live tile Windows 8 extravaganza that everybody loved so much. Garbage truck! Can't see him. This old version of Windows Mobile is very similar to a regular desktop Windows experience. There's a start button, there's a full file explorer, there's a task manager, there's programs like Word and Excel, even Solitaire. There was even Windows Media Player for music or even videos. There's even MSN. This was almost a full Windows experience on a phone. Maybe not full, that's a bit of a stretch, but it's as close as you could possibly get. And all of this in the early 2000s, way before the iPhone. You could run EXEs, you could even right-click. This is all so cool. And again, I was going to say how I wish that there was some modern version of this today, but again, I don't think I do. Having this freedom and these features available is really nice. But writing a Word doc, or going through an extensive file browser, or doing really any of this stuff on a device this small looks difficult. But it's still so cool to see a time when you could get a device like this. From a time where we were still just figuring out where the line should be drawn between computer and phone. The 2000s produced some very cool stuff. An era of experimentation that I miss. But today isn't so bad. Phones are largely all kind of the same thing because this touchscreen format works very good. And there are some things, like I said, there are folding phones coming out now. Those are really cool. There are flippy touchscreen phones. Hell, they even rebooted the Motorola Razr. Things I don't think will ever be as experimental as they were in the 2000s. But things are always changing. So, I don't know. I'm hopeful for the future to see what technology will bring next. I personally am hoping for this iPhone concept from 2014. But what do you think? Do you like these old phones? Or do you think they are really crappy and bad? Is there one that I didn't mention here that you might have had back then that you found really cool? Because there were a lot of them. I mentioned a lot of them, but not nearly all of them. Let me know in the comments. I would genuinely love to hear it. I love hearing about all kinds of this stuff. Subscribe, like, rate 5 stars, all that jazz. If you want to, you don't have to. And I will see you in the next one.